one with compassion just like yours above, one that overcomes evil with goodness and love, like it never happened, never holding a grudge. I want a heart that forgives, that lives and lets live, one that keeps loving over and over again, one that men can offend because your word is deep within, one that loves without price like you, Lord Jesus Christ. I want a heart that loves everybody, Father, even my enemies. I want to love like you be, like you, just like you did. Father, I want a heart that forgives, want a heart that forgives, I want a heart that forgives when the ones that are closest, that I've known the longest, they hurt me the most. I still want to love them just like you love me, even though I'm hurting. God, you know they hurt me deep. I want a heart that forgives, Lord, when the pain is so deep that it's so hard for me to speak about it to anyone. Just like your son, I give up my right to hold it against them with hatred inside. I want a heart that loves everybody, Father, even my enemies. I want to love like you, be like you, just like you did. I want to walk like you, talk like you, just like you did. I want to love them anyway, no matter what they do or say. 'Cause the heart that forgives is the heart that will live, totally free from the pain of the past. And the heart that lets go, that is the heart that will know so much freedom.
Good morning and welcome to another edition of Tuesday Transformation Tidbits with Patrice. I am so excited that you decided to join me this morning. Tuesday Transformation Tidbits is about transforming your mind, empowering you to overcome obstacles, and igniting or infusing the passion, the power, and the potential that lies on the inside of you. To my listeners this morning, I'm glad you got up at 6 a.m. to join me. I need you to like and share and like this episode on this morning, and we're going to jump right into it. For the month of September, we've been talking about if it causes you, whatever it is that's causing you your peace, It is too expensive. So whatever price that you're paying for something else instead of than your peace, you need to go back and get your money because it's too expensive. Do not exchange your peace for anything. And the first Tuesday of September, we talked about what peace was. Last Tuesday, we talked about letting it go. We talked about your cravings. We talked about the things in your closet, every sizing of clothing you had. We talked about just letting it go. If this is too valuable, all of these things that you have, and you're losing out on your peace, I want you to know it's time to let it go. On today, we're going to be talking about something else that we need to go. Let go. It's something that most of us have even had in life or currently going through in life. And if you live longer, it's going to come around again. And that's nothing else. Excuse me this morning. That's nothing else than forgiveness. I want you to think for a moment, or I want you to focus for a moment in your mind, something that you have been forgiven for, something that you need to forgive somebody for, and better yet, maybe you need to forgive yourself on this morning. Whatever that thing is, whomever that thing is, I want you to put that in the forefront of your mind as we talk this morning. So let's dive in a little bit. So forgiveness is a choice. It's a choice that your life is really depending upon on this morning. I want us to understand that before we go any further. It's an individual choice that you have to choose to take. And your life really depends on this choice on today. So forgiveness requires us to confront our emotions. It's requiring us to confront our values. It helps us to deal with the greater self-awareness of who we are. And forgiveness brings about a personal development. And all month since we started these Tuesday transformation, the overall goal is to make us self-aware of ourselves, to make us have some personal development that's going on. When we talk about self-awareness, if you remember when I started out with asking you to take a mirror and to look at yourself in the mirror and to introduce yourself to yourself. So you will become keenly aware of who you are and the things that lie on the inside of you. So today we want you to once again take that mirror and look at yourself so you can deal with the forgiveness or the unforgiveness that lies on the inside of you, any grudges that you have, all of those things on this morning. I want it to be in the forefront of your mind so that we can deal with it. So when we begin to look at forgiveness, the Bible talks about forgive as you have been forgiven. And each and every one of us on this line, anyone who's going to come back and hear the replay, each and every one of us has been forgiven by God. So since God has been so gracious to us, we ought to be able to give that same forgiveness to ourselves and to everyone else that we come in contact with. It talks about forgiveness is letting go of anger quickly. And sometimes when we get so upset and we get so mad, we need to take a few minutes, close our eyes, and count to 10. And when we do that, we will realize that there is a release that comes on the inside of us. What it does is calms us down so that the anger can dissipate. So it talks about forgiveness is leaving vengeance to God. On today, I want you to know, all of you who are holding vengeance and you want to go after vengeance against the perpetrator that has done something to you, the offender that has done something to you, I want you to know on today that job has already been taken by God. You don't even qualify for that job. But the God says that vengeance belongs to him. He occupies that position. You don't have the criteria for that position. God is going to take care of the offender. God is going to take care of the perpetrator. Whatever the situation is, it's already in the hands of God. So what we have to do is we have to be kind one to another, as the Bible says, tenderhearted, forgiving one another for Christ's sake, even as he has forgiven us. We are to have the desire to want to forgive someone else. So when we talk about what is forgiveness, forgiveness is not just about saying the word forgive or going to say to somebody just for the sake of it, hey, I forgive you. But forgiveness is an active process. If you making a conscientious decision to let go of negative feelings, and rather the person deserves it or rather the person does not deserve it. But it's a conscientious decision, an individual decision that we make. No one else can allow us to be forgiven or to grant forgiveness. We have to grant it on our own. Forgiveness is a powerful and it's a transformation or transformative act, and it involves us letting go resentment. We've got to let go anger. We have to have a desire to let go of the revenge that we want to get back other. It's not condoning or forgetting the act that caused you some pain, but it's about freeing yourself from the emotional burden that you're carrying around. You got to free yourself from that unforgiveness. You got to free yourself for those grudges, that resentment, that anger. You've got to let it go on today. Look at yourself in the mirror, talk out loud to yourself this morning and say, I got to let it go. I can't carry this burden around anymore because this burden is too heavy for me. When we look at forgiveness, when we forgive, we choose to release that negative emotion and we choose to find a pathway that's going to lead us to healing and an inner peace. After all, everything that we do, we want to have peace in what we do. So when we begin to look at it, what exactly is the process? I am so happy you asked me that on this morning. So forgiveness is a process that takes time. Everyone who's listening to me this morning, I want you to understand that it does not happen overnight. The forgiveness process is not going to happen within the next 5 or 10 minutes, but it takes time and it takes effort for us to do. We have to first acknowledge our pain. We got to first say that, hey, yes, I was wounded. Yes, I was offended, and it had an impact upon us. I often say, to thy own self, be true. Be true about the point that you were offended. Be true about the point that something bothered you, something gave you pain. It requires a self-reflection. You got to reflect on yourself, and you've got to understand exactly what is going on with you. You got to understand that maybe the person who hurt you is having issues with their self right now. Maybe they don't understand the degree of hurt or how they have offended you. So it's requiring you to have some understanding. It involves cultivating an understanding and a compassion. Recognize that we all have faults. And we all are capable of making mistakes in life. So we've got to watch when we become so angry with someone else who has offended us, because maybe it's just about a mistake that they have made, and we all have been there. Forgiving ourselves, however, is one of the things that is equally important as us forgiving other people. When we look at forgiving ourselves, sometimes we hold on to our guilt. We hold on to the shame of past actions, of past decisions that we have made. We holding on to us. And I don't know about you, but I have difficulty forgiving myself more than I have difficulties forgiving other people. I can be quick to forgive someone else, but when it comes to me, it's something about myself that I hold on to it. When you look at self-forgiveness, it involves, once again, acknowledging our imperfections, taking responsibility for our actions, and it's showing ourselves that we have compassion and understanding for ourselves. It's about self-forgiving. I don't know who on the line this morning that needs to forgive themselves about something, but I want to encourage you on this morning to forgive yourself. Let it go. Let that thing go. Let that decision that might have been a poor decision, let it go on this morning. No longer do you need to hold on to that shame and that guilt of whatever act it was. Let it go. Forgiving yourself is about learning from your mistakes and allowing yourself to grow and to evolve in this world. If we never make mistakes, the possibility of us growing, the possibility of us evolving is not great. Life is full of ups and downs, mistakes, failures, and wins. And we can turn a failure into a win. It's all about recognizing, it's all about acknowledging that, hey, I need to deal with me. I've made some bad decisions in life, but life is about decisions. As I said, forgiveness is not a one-time event. It's not something that's going to happen one time, but it's a daily practice. And can I take it even further to say that it's a minute by minute practice sometimes? It's an hour by hour practice sometimes. And sometimes it's even a second by second. You've got to constantly talk to yourself and declare that you need forgiveness. Not only do you need forgiveness for yourself, but you need forgiveness for other people. There's some days that you're going to easily forget someone. You're going to be able to do it quickly. It's not going to bother you. But then that next day, you might have a challenge with that forgiveness again. And can I take it even further to say, in the morning, you might be able to forgive. But by the time that afternoon comes and you begin to think about something, that whole unforgiveness moment comes back up. That whole grudginess comes back up. That resentment comes back up. That's why it is so important to check on our minds. It is so important to fill our minds with peaceful things, to fill our minds with good things. It is so important to check those thoughts that enter into our minds so that we'll be able to help ourselves in this area of forgiveness. When we look at forgiveness, it requires patience. It requires self-compassion. It requires a commitment to letting something go. You got to let it go on today, because this burden of unforgiveness that we are carrying around, it is exactly too heavy for you. So you got to choose to forgive. We got to create space for healing and for personal growth and taking responsibility. We want a healthier life, a healthier body. We want to be healthy in mind, soul, and our physical body. We don't want to walk around with a whole bunch of ailments. And I need you to understand, unforgiveness brings ailments. Unforgiveness brings diabetes. It brings heart problems. Unforgiveness higher your blood pressure, hypertension, all of these things that we have that's going on in our body. Sometimes it stems from unforgiveness. Yes, diabetes can stem from bad appetite, bad eating habits rather, but sometimes it's about that unforgiveness that we are hosting on the inside of us. If we release it, sometimes these ailments that we have will dissipate. They will begin to move out of the way because that burden that we were carrying on the inside becomes lighter because it's not there. Let me give you some steps before I conclude on this morning. Steps for you to consider when we're talking about unforgiveness. Yes, unforgiveness, my sis, is like a cancer. It will begin to eat and eat and eat and eat you up until it destroys you. It takes your peace. It takes your mind. Your relationships with other people are not great relationships because you can't get past of the unforgiveness. You can't experience anything new, near less have a new relationship because you're holding on to that grudge. Let it go on this morning. Some steps I want to talk about. First of all, when the first step that we want to do, we want to acknowledge the pain. And I said this initially, we want to acknowledge the pain. We want to recognize and we want to validate the emotion that you're feeling, that you're experiencing when you have unforgiveness. We want to acknowledge it because it is a true emotion. It is something that we need to deal with it. Then we want to understand the impact that it has upon us. We got to reflect on how holding on to resentment, how it produces anger, how it affects our well-being. And then we want to shift our perspective. We want to try to see the situation from a different lens. We want to consider the circumstances that happened for that unforgiveness to come about. We want to look at the person's intentions and maybe some of the struggles that they have gone through. We want to just consider ourselves in that person's, that offender's position. Because to be honest, we all have offended somebody at some point in time. And we want to consider, how did we feel when we offended that person? When someone has come to us and say that we have offended them, what was our course of action? How did we feel about what we said to that person? So we got to shift our perspective when we're talking about the offender in us and put ourselves in that position. We've got to practice self-compassion, understanding, taking the olive branch and extending it to our brothers, extending it to our sisters, and extending it to ourselves also. And one of the biggest points, we got to release expectations. People, we set expectations on other people, and the expectations that we set on other people, we really don't even know if that person has the ability to execute that expectation. But we're charging them with an expectation that they may not be able to do. They don't have the wherewithal to be able to handle that expectation that we're placing upon that person. So because we're putting that expectation upon them and they don't fulfill that expectation, hurt comes in. And then we get all upset because we're hurt because they didn't fulfill that expectation. We got to choose to forgive. It is a choice on today to forgive. And we've got to make that choice on today, that decision on today to forgive. And the next thing, we got to seek support. Forgiveness is a process, and forgiveness is a challenging process. And sometimes you got to seek support. Sometimes you got to go and, as I say, sit on somebody's couch. Go and sit on somebody's couch and take that thing on the inside of you and reveal it, release it, have a talk with somebody and tell them all about your problems. We're going to have a talk with Jesus, but we're also going to have a talk with somebody else with it. And we're going to combine it with Jesus so that we can have deliverance. We need to be able to release that thing on the inside. Why? Because we don't want to have anger. We don't want to have resentment on the inside. We don't want to hold grudges on the inside. We want to make the choice to forgive. Remember, forgiveness is a journey, and it may take time for it to happen, but we need to be patient with ourselves. And not only do we need to be patient with ourselves, but we need to celebrate each step that we make forward. When you're pressing and you're going forward, celebrate that step. By celebrating you, it's going to give you the courage. It's going to give you the thrust. It's going to give you the energy to take another step towards forgiveness. On today, my Tuesday transformation tidbit for you on this Tuesday, September 17th, 2024 at 6 a.m. in the morning is forgiveness. It's a conscientious decision. It's a choice to release the negative emotions that you have on the inside. By choosing forgiveness, you're going to create a space for healing, for growth, for peace. Peace now. You're going to be able to align yourself with what you're going through now, and peace for your future. Remember, on today, my listeners, I want you to share and like and share. Subscribe to our YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube page, our Facebook, and subscribe with me on Spotify. Once again, forgive. It is a conscientious decision, an individual decision that we need to make. I want you to have an amazing day, and you be amazing on today. Shalom.
I want a heart that forgives, a heart full of love, one with compassion just like yours above, one that overcomes evil with goodness and love, like it never happened, never holding a grudge.